Spoofing, a technique employed by cybercriminals, involves the manipulation of data, identities, or communication channels to trick systems, individuals, or networks. Now we will delve into the layers of spoofing, explore its various forms, and discuss strategies to defend against this pervasive threat. Spoofing entails presenting false information to deceive recipients, often mimicking a trusted source. Cybercriminals utilize spoofing to gain unauthorized access, launch phishing attacks, or manipulate data for malicious purposes. Common forms of spoofing: IP spoofing, falsifying the source IP address to conceal the attacker's identity or impersonate a trusted source. Allows unauthorized access, facilitates DDoS attacks, and can lead to data interception. Email spoofing, manipulating email headers to make messages appear as if they come from a legitimate source. Facilitates phishing, social engineering, and business email compromise attacks. Caller ID spoofing, falsifying the caller ID information to mislead recipients about the origin of a call. Enables voice phishing or vishing and social engineering attacks. Email authentication protocols, deploying DMARC, KIM, and SPF to authenticate email senders and detect email spoofing. Intrusion detection systems, monitoring network traffic for anomalous behavior indicative of spoofing. User education, educating users on recognizing phishing attempts. Verifying email senders and staying vigilant against social engineering tactics. Case studies, analyzing real-world cases where organizations successfully detected and mitigated spoofing attacks. Future trends and challenges, discussing emerging trends in spoofing techniques, and the challenges cybersecurity professionals face in staying ahead of evolving threats. Now let's pivot in another direction of where cybercriminals utilize spoofing. DNS spoofing. The domain name system DNS is a critical component of the Internet infrastructure, translating human-readable domain names into IP addresses. Let's explore how DNS spoofing poses a serious threat to the integrity of Internet communications. Understanding DNS resolution. When a user enters a domain name in their browser, the device needs to resolve that domain to an IP address. The device queries a DNS server to obtain the IP address associated with the requested domain. Normal DNS resolution process. The device sends a DNS request to its configured DNS server. The DNS server checks its cache for the corresponding IP address. If not found, it queries authoritative DNS servers to obtain the IP address. The authoritative DNS server responds with the correct IP address, and the DNS server caches this information for future use. DNS spoofing attack, ENA. DNS spoofing attack. An attacker aims to inject false DNS records into the cache of a DNS server. The attacker may achieve this by exploiting vulnerabilities in the DNS server software or by intercepting and modifying DNS responses during transit. Manipulating DNS responses. The attacker sends fake DNS responses to the targeted DNS server, providing incorrect IP addresses for legitimate domain names. The DNS server, trusting the false information, caches the malicious IP address associated with the legitimate domain. Redirecting users. When users attempt to access the legitimate domain, their devices receive the manipulated DNS response from the compromised DNS server. As a result, users are redirected to the attacker-controlled IP address instead of the genuine website. Consequences of DNS spoofing. Phishing. Users may be redirected to malicious websites that mimic legitimate ones to steal sensitive information. Man in the middle attacks. The attacker can intercept and manipulate communication between users and legitimate servers. Mitigation and prevention. Dense security extensions. Adds cryptographic signatures to DNS data, ensuring the integrity and authenticity of DNS responses. Regular monitoring. Network administrators should monitor DNS traffic for anomalies and unauthorized changes. Use of trusted DNS servers. Users and organizations can configure their systems to use DNS servers with a reputation for security. Now, let's explore another form of spoofing, ARP spoofing. Address Resolution Protocol spoofing, also known as ARP cache poisoning, involves manipulating the ARP tables to associate a legitimate IP address with a fake MAC address. This technique allows attackers to intercept and modify network traffic. Normal ARP process. Devices ARP to map IP addresses to MAC addresses on a local network. ARP requests are broadcasted to find the MAC address associated with a specific IP. ARP spoofing attack. Attackers send fake ARP replies, associating their MAC address with a legitimate IP. This causes network traffic meant for the legitimate IP to be sent to the attacker's system. Consequences of this happening could be man-in-the-middle attacks. The attacker intercepts and manipulates network communication. Or session hijacking. Allows unauthorized access to sensitive information. To mitigate and prevent from happening. Static ARP entries. Manually configuring ARP entries to prevent dynamic mapping. ARP spoofing detection tools. Identifying and alerting administrators to potential ARP spoofing. Network segmentation. Reducing the scope of ARP spoofing by segmenting networks. In combining our understanding of DNS spoofing and ARP spoofing, we fortify our knowledge against these insidious cyber threats. As cybersecurity professionals, it is our responsibility to stay vigilant, adapt to emerging trends, and employ robust security measures to protect against the ever-evolving landscape of spoofing attacks.